It's going.
It is?
Yeah. You look
I
down
missed
for
the
the countdown.
countdown?
Yeah.
I missed it? Did I really?
Yeah.
It's going?
Yeah.
Dang. I wasn't ready. How did I miss it? Was I looking?
You looked down right as it started.
Oh. Everybody, welcome to the Voxology Podcast. Mike Erie, Tim Stafford, and Tim Stafford sporting, if you're on the YouTube, sporting Voxology merch today.
That's right.
That's a great hat. Is that our new hat?
This was a trial run that I did.
Oh, I like that.
This is the only one that exists. It's not in our store. It's an exclusive.
We have an Etsy store, by the way. If you're looking for gift ideas, we have an Etsy store. And we also have an incredibly generous community that supports our efforts. And if you want to join in, or if you're somebody who waits until the end of the year to donate, we are a 501c3 crowd-funded nonprofit. And so everything is tax deductible. Thank you. Thank you for the incredible crew that has joined us on the adventure thus far. Today, we are, it's December 12th. So we are under 2 weeks out from the big day. Highlighted Tim Stafford's year.
Woo!
And yep.
I just put my lights up yesterday.
You what?
I just put my lights up yesterday.
See, this is why you and I can't be married. Yeah, our stuff's
fair, I normally do it quicker, but like the sun sets at like 4:30 right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've been watching the news, but California has been under this layer of
no, I haven't.
Radiological fog. I forget some kind of crazy fog. We've been in the fog for over 2 weeks, nonstop.
Is this a metaphor?
I
or
wish.
Or is this a literal?
No, it's a literal. Like you can't see a foot in front of your car.
Oh wow!
24/7.
Okay.
We've never had anything like this. It's the whole Central Valley of California is.
Oh my
under
Lord,
this
no,
fog
I didn't
layer.
know that. Wow,
it's crazy. So you really like it gets dark, but then it's also like you literally can't see outside.
It's murky.
So, yep. Which
bro.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, shocker. This is perfect Halloween weather.
I know. All the people are running around at the gym. One of my friends at the gym he's like, I can't do it anymore. He's like, you probably like this, don't you? He's like, oh, I'm loving this.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Tim
sir.
Stafford, ladies and gentlemen. Which makes this just a great friendship, but not marriage.
That's right.
Because I like lights. I like cheeriness. I like the sunshine. Those things are all good for me. So
I'll take the doom and the gloom.
Yes. Speaking of doom and gloom, we've got some lowlights from the current administration. Although I will say this. I don't know if we need a theme song for this, but I saw it on Amazon. I didn't believe it was real. It is real. I bought it and it arrived. It is called Jesus and Trump, The Parallel Sayings. It's a book I'm holding up to our
and it's not
YouTube
like
audience.
It's not like a farce. It's not like a
No, it's a legit. So introduction by James Adams, who sounds like he could have been one of the presidents. And it's got a blurb on the back. It's written by James Adams, who is a patriot and Christian who believes in the soul of America. He lives in Amarillo, Texas, with his wife of 25 years and their 5 sons. And I really wish I could read the back blurb on this. It's pretty amazing. But what it is, it's a book of parallel sayings. So they start with the thing that Trump says, and then they go to the thing that Jesus says. It's so like the last paragraph of the intro. This is not just a book about two men. It's a study of how language can create movements, inspire action, and forge legacies that endure long after the speakers have departed from the world. Let the words speak for themselves.
Which could still be a farce.
Some may read this book and find humor in the comparison. Others may be unsettled, surprised, or deeply reflective. Regardless of where one stands politically or spiritually, this collection challenges us to consider the weight of words and the extraordinary influence of those who speak them. Right? So here's the format. It's one saying per page. And so it starts with Trump. Trump's on the left side, and
obviously,
then yeah. So just example, I alone can fix it is the Trump quote from the Republican National Convention in 2016. The parallel saying is from John 1:4. His light brought life to everyone.
What in the world?
It's glorious, dude. Trump, think big and live large. Jesus, my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. Quoting John 10:10. This is one of my favorites. We will make America great again. Inaugural address from January 20th, 2017. The parallel saying here is the kingdom of God has come near.
Oh,
Mark 1:15.
Exact same thing.
Yep. The forgotten men and women will be forgotten no longer. Same inaugural address. The parallel saying the first will be last and the last will be first.
Wow.
The best is yet to come. State of the Union address, February 4th, 2020. And then from Revelation 21, I am making everything new. Inaugural address 2017. Together we will determine the course of America the course of America and the world for years to come. Parallel saying Acts 1:8, and you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth.
Wow.
It's glorious. I have to do one more. Now, I'm on page 22 out of 119, and I thought it would just be fun to check in every episode for the foreseeable future. Just a couple of these to just reflect on the parallel sayings. Last one for today. Promises made, promises kept. Victory speech, November 2024. Parallel saying, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away.
What?
24.
It's like it was just like a random generator pulling random.
So let that be the star that guides you to the crib of the infant Jesus.
Unreal.
So anyway, that was worth the $11 I spent on Amazon for that. This week in Christian nationalism. It has been determined from multiple news agencies that we are illegally murdering people off the shores of Venezuela and wherever else we're shooting down boats. Pete Hegseth defended this by saying, hey, in doing this, and I'm not sure that this was about the boats, but more about just the agenda of America first. In doing this, we appeal to Almighty God, just as our forefathers did. Washington, the founder of the War Department, appealed to God's providence during every step of our improbable revolution, on prayer, on bended knee, on the battlefield. Ronald Reagan did the same, appealing to heaven as the world hung in the balance. We do the same today with Jesus Christ as our guide. Incredible. Incredible. Just a couple of other things noted by this Christian administration. Trump at a rally, I said, why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right? Mm-hmm. Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, Denmark? I wonder what those people have in common. But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime. The only thing they're good for is going after ships.
It reads just like the Emma Lazarus poem on the Statue of Liberty.
Yes. Well, and the parallel saying from Jesus would be...
Get out.
Yes. Depart from me, Satan.
And then Jesus said, get off my lawn.
Oh, so good. There was a lament circulating around the tweets. The population of whites in America has gone in 1920 from 89.7 to 2025, 59.8% white. Well, that's it, right? We talked about this last episode. Is this a threat? Is this a good thing? Are there trade-offs? Are there pluses and minuses? But it was interesting. And the tagline, and so like was 89.7, 1930, 89.8, 1940, 89.8, 50, we started going down 89.5, 60, 88.6, down and down and down and down. And then we had a very significant drop from 1990 to 2000 from 80% to 75%. And now we're at 59%. And so what's the conclusion to be drawn is the question we want to ask. Let's say that's true. What's the conclusion we should draw? That we are under threat, that we're being invaded. These are just people from shithole countries. I mean, this is the kind of like the gospel isn't just a believing and receiving in my heart. This creates a social reality where news like this, and I'm not saying, hey, the answer here is open borders and we don't vet anyone. No, I think wisdom and enforcement still apply. The issue is how is it done and what's it based out of? And it's clear from the words and the example of this administration, it's done out of fear, hatred, racism, xenophobism, if that's even a word. I mean, it's just all of the awful, nasty sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm great for saying immigration policy and humane refugee policy and at times deporting people who need to be deported. But, as we've talked about at length, this is not what we see happening. And so what is it that we should fear? And the whole administration is clearly taking the social ills of America, placing them squarely on the presence of immigrants and refugees in the country. In fact, there was a news article, I will not read it, but it's so disturbing because the naturalization ceremonies are being interrupted. So these are people who have a green card. So becoming a U.S. citizen takes years. You've got to get a green card, interviews, background checks, classes, a citizenship test. So then there are naturalization ceremonies where you become a citizen. When we were serving a Thanksgiving meal several weeks ago, we met somebody who just become a citizen at 7 a.m. that morning. And she was just beaming. Well, there's a news article about how they're going to these naturalization ceremonies where literally you've done everything, you've passed every step, and you're about to be sworn in. And they're pulling people out of those ceremonies who come from countries that have been deemed at risk. And there are 19 of them. And I'll give you a guess as to what they all have in common. Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. On the partial ban list are Burundi, Cuba, Laos, Sierra Leone, Togo, Turkmenistan, and Venezuela. Mm-hmm. I don't see Denmark, Sweden, and whatever on the list. So just interesting. Again, Christian, we're just Christianing. We're bringing Jesus back, ladies and gentlemen. It's incredible how back Jesus is.
We're bringing back the Ewan McGregor Jesus.
There's a poll. Tim Stafford sent me an article from John. How do you say his name?
Great question. It's one of those last names. Remember the first time you read Harry Potter the first time you saw a Harry Potter movie and they said Hermione and you're like, it's pronounced how?
It's Hermione.
It's not Hermy one?
Yeah,
so, his last name is very similar where I've read his name so many times and then I tried to say
Palovich?
Palpovitz?
Yeah, something like that. His name is
first name
John. JP, we'll call him JP. And so we were talking on a Zoom call the other day, and Tim Stafford had sent this with the following title: "We can't change these hateful people, America. We have to outnumber them." And do you want me? I have the article printed out. Do you want me to read from it, excerpt it? Do you want to summarize it?
I just thought it was interesting because with all this American Christian nationalism stuff. And all the fear and anger that comes out in every one of these little This Week in Christian Nationalism stuff. I thought this was an interesting take because of the fact that it doesn't seem to be any reasoning with folks that are, really sunk into this ideology. So if you can't reason, if you can't communicate, if you can't sit down and have a conversation that data can help sway. Like I was just watching a thing on data this morning about, it was this African American guy talking about just, he's like, people get so mad at me when I talk about like the damage that Christians are doing in this nation. He's like, but I'm just bringing data. And so he just went through a long data list of like all this really gnarly stuff that white Christians are
Did you send it to me?
Yeah.
Did you send that to me?
But
make a note of it.
So this is like I think, I don't know. When I keep asking you, like when we're chatting out, like off the mic,
what
about like how, like we need a theology.
Never to bring that up. Never to bring those up, bro.
We need to develop a theology of hope and resistance and what that actually looks like in this time. Because I don't like the tit for tat version that a lot of politicians are doing. Like if he does this, we're going to do this, and I don't think that solves much.
Yeah.
But I think we do need to have conversations about how we change the way in which we are responding.
For sure.
And so I think this was at least an interesting introduction to a conversation about what that might be.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he cracked the code necessarily, but.
Well, it's interesting. Because you find it interesting, I read it. And in essence, it's just, let's give up. and try. So here's, but it's very well written. I disagree with it, which is interesting because I want your thoughts on this, because I disagree with what he's saying.
Do it.
There's an old saying, when the horse is dead, dismount. I've never heard that saying, Tim. Have you ever heard that saying?
I haven't. I've kicking a dead horse, which.
Yeah. Kicking a dead horse.
Also seems mean.
Could I just throw out my family are good Midwest Appalachian type people, and they have a collection of sayings that this reminds me of that are hilarious. This is totally random, no planning on this, but things like, there's this shorthand we just Midwesterners speak that's really funny. I think we've mentioned these before.
Maybe.
When the horse is dead, dismount. Never heard that.
It's good advice.
I mean, it seems. Yeah. Let's see here. Things like denial ain't just a river in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Finer than frog hair. How you doing? Fine. I'm finer than frog hair. Rode hard and put away wet, which is a reference to a horse. Yeah. Which, when the horse is dead, dismount, seems to be the parallel saying here.
Yeah. Scares
me and I'm fearless. That's one. The more you run over a dead cat, the flatter it gets, which I think is one of the laws of thermodynamics.
Yeah.
Right there. Probably the fourth one. This one is my personal favorite. Sometimes you get the elevator and sometimes you get the shaft. Oh, okay. So there are many more of these. Anyway, those came to mind. Oh, all right. So when the horse is dead, dismount. Sorry, that was totally random. All right, so back to him. It's time to stop beating this one, America. It's not going anywhere. These people cannot be helped. So I'm already like, okay, these people, really? Yeah. He says, we tried for 10 years now. We've tried to understand them, listen to them. We've given them the benefit of the doubt. We've tried not to assign motive to them, not to speculate as to why they voted the way they voted, and not believe they consented to every cruel thing their vote birthed and is enabled. We've tried not to caricature them, not to make them into one-dimensional stereotypes, not to treat them as fictional. We've tried appealing to their sense of decency, capacity for compassion, to their faith in Jesus. We've quietly endured thousands of their racist outbursts, homophobic rants on social media and at neighborhood picnics and across the Thanksgiving dinner table, in the hopes that I could find some vulnerable place beneath their feet to access later. We've tried buoying pep talks and firm, tough love and expressions of kindness and straight-talking challenge and at attempts at affirmation. We've tried discussing theology, sharing stories of oppressed communities, offering facts in the face of a million lies generated by their president, and reminding them of the lessons history has already taught us about the steep slope we are currently sliding down. They have all failed to reach fertile ground. Nothing has worked. It's been fruitless. It's time to stop saying that we need to understand these people. We do understand them. We understand that we understand that they've dug in their heels so deeply they will not be moved by anything. Not facts or data or truth or their own eyes. We understand that there's no political scandal massive enough, no post reckless enough, no legislation predatory enough to alter their allegiance. We understand that the past 10 years of viciousness and ineptitude haven't tempered their passions, but have ignited them. We understand that the image of an angry white American male God is so burned into their brains that they see no conflict with a religion devoid of love, a world absent diversity, or a theology made of malice. Ooh. Tim's like, okay.
I mean,
we understand that infidelity, dishonesty, obscenity, and cruelty are no longer liabilities in those who lead them. We understand that Fox News poison is so fully circulated through their systems, the truth is no longer necessary. He keeps going. We understand their capacity to rationalize away human rights, atrocities, now borders on complete delusion. People have warned us that we should treat these people with kid gloves, that explicitly expressing anger or pointing out criminality or vocally opposing injustice right now will only drive them deeper into their entrenched positions. That is a fairly desired assessment if true. So it's one thing to hold out hope for 2 election cycles, but at this point, I'm not sure any miraculous moral awakening or conversion of the heart is possible. If their consciences and compassion and reason have not been accessed and unearthed by now, it's highly unlikely those things will ever be forthcoming. And since these people will not be moved, the rest of us need to move together. This was the point, I think, that drew your attention. Democrat, Republican, and independent, the deeply devout and the passionately irreligious, people of every difference and distinction need to move in concert to affirm our shared regard for one another and to work to restore balance in something that we love. This isn't a battle to change minds of the few who refuse to be changed. That horse is dead. It also isn't a test to see if we can manufacture the same hatred and vitriol for them as they dispense towards us. This is a golden moment for the vast sprawling army of good people who believe in the beauty of diversity and in fully accessible America to speak unequivocally on our social media profiles, family gatherings, church meetings, and most of all in the voting booth. We don't need to convince or coddle or win over hatred. We don't need to outdo it either. We need to outnumber it, outlast it, outlove it, and outvote it, and we will. Boom. What grabbed you? What grabbed you, Tim?
well, I think what I said at the beginning,
You can't just repeat yourself.
Well, it's just hard to figure out if you can't have a reasonable conversation. And so a lot of stuff you said in the middle, I think is true. Like you can watch the interviews, the different things where anyone brings up any data or facts and it doesn't matter. It's just about, I don't even know what it's about at this point. It's just about supremacy and about fear and anger and whatever. I mean, it's coming from the person that leads the revolt can barely put sentences together. So I don't think it's I think we keep trying to take these reasonable approaches to things.
Yeah.
For great reasons. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think that this article like at least provokes the conversation.
Oh, it does.
You can't out anger, you can't out hate.
Right.
And I think that as we get tired, that's where we start to slip to is, we'll meet force with force, and the force being anger and hate. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. You referenced a couple of the like detainee things, and I was watching the Kristi Noem interview this morning, or the trial thing, and they brought on a veteran who had been accosted and deported to Korea. He's an American veteran and been here for his entire life since he was 7, I think. And she won't even comment on the fact that happened. Like just like a deer in headlights. So it's like there's no guardrails on anything. Mm-hmm. So how do you operate in a system that is like that? Like we can just keep being smiling faces and being like, no, guys, that's not how it is.
For sure.
The kingdom is coming. Just hold on, while
Trump's the picture of health.
Well, and it's easy for you and I to sit in our houses and be like, hey, everybody, the kingdom's coming. Like it's here now. Like everything's fine. Don't worry about it, while we're sitting here as white men able to feel
Yeah.
comfortable in this
Yeah.
broken system.
Yeah.
But that's just not the case for so many people. So we have to
Totally.
find different ways. And I know we keep talking about like get active in your local community, and I think that's very true. But I
Yeah.
am interested in what a theology of like hope and resistance actually looks like, because
Mm-hmm.
they're just rhetorical terms until we inhabit them or are inhabited by them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think he's just writing a provocative thing. I don't think he offers any solutions there other than like we just have to outlast it. And it's like, well, that's not
Right.
anything.
Right.
Just hold your breath
Right.
longer than the person next to you and you'll be fine. And it's like, well, I'm not
Well,
interested in that contest.
yeah. Because there's, I mean, you have the fight fire with fire crowd. You have the sort of Gombus maneuver, which is I just don't bring it up and talk to anybody about
Right.
it. You've got the, I just think we give up on trying to convince them. But I wonder, I don't know if this is true, Tim. I have two thoughts and I'd love to know what you think. And you're right. We have the luxury of having these thoughts without any risk.
Yeah.
I get that for sure. But I still feel like there's stuff for us to do, and that, and so here we are doing whatever, the small bit that we can or whatever. One thought is we don't treat people well because it works. We do that because it reflects the fundamental convictions that undergird our entire moral, structure. And so the reason I want to be receptive, kind, and listening and hospitable is because it has very little to do with whether or not that wins me an argument or changes their mind. It has everything to do with how am I inhabiting the gospel in the world. So for sure, and that's the place of standing we've called joy, joyful non-participation or whatever. So that's one thought I have. Another thought I have is I think there are people who are the silent Trump voters who looked at the Kamala Trump, decision as lesser of evils. And they are growing very dissatisfied and distraught with the current administration. But they don't have a safe place to go, because if people receive them as like, well, you're the idiot that voted for this, right, so you've got to live with it, right? Then why would they ever open themselves up to even acknowledge they're having second thoughts? Like I've had conversations with people who have voted that direction 3 times who are now having second thoughts. And if they just get shut down and shamed, well, then we truly haven't done anything.
Right.
So I'm wondering if, yes, his point about like the marginal, not marginal, but the very loud, vocal, I think, minority of Trump supporters who are immovable. Absolutely. Everything will be a cause for celebration. We're lying through our teeth. The corruption. Hey, dude, FIFA gives him this World Peace Award, and then he dispenses with a Department of Justice. I mean, it's just like a corruption case. Like, I mean, it's just insane. I keep telling my kids, it's not, I mean, it may have always been corrupt, but it was never this openly corrupt. It was never this openly open for business and bribes. But I do think there are folks who are really rethinking their allegiance. And I think it's those folks that they're the reason why we still need to be gracious and winsome and whatever. And still, so I think it has to be called out, right? That's exactly what we talked about.
Yeah.
We have to be grievers because you and I aren't sitting under threat in the same way that Somalis are in Minnesota. That's for sure. And then we have to be people whose understanding of hope isn't outlasting, outworking, or outliving these people. I think our definition of hope has to be a complete reorientation away from that to say, listen, it's the dude who sits with the Klansmen and just simply says, right? I mean, that's the mode of Jesus. It's not a third way. It's not a middle way. It is an entirely different set of, exactly. And so if the evaluation, and this is where I'm skeptical of the article, if the evaluation is whether or not we change minds, then I can understand that, okay, well, let's stop trying to change minds. But if the evaluation is, are we faithful to the example and teaching and person of Jesus? And if the answer is yes, even when people persecute us, even when they are our enemies, well, that's the only thing that matters.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we can love, one of the ways that we love our enemies is by just naming the truth of what suppresses. Now, I realize that people naming the truth can be used and abused in all sorts of ways, but I just mean, listen, one of the ways that we love our enemies is by continually holding up the self-proclaimed, their own self-proclaimed faith in Jesus to the reality of Jesus's words and going, hey, there seems to be a big disparity here. So all that is to say is like, I get it. And I'm not trying anymore, because he's right. Anymore, when I get into conversations that go down rabbit holes, there is no shared data set from which we can each appeal.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing we can put in common. I can say, well, here's this news article, and they can say, well, that's mainstream media.
Right.
Of course, mainstream media won't cover it. I'm like, well, yeah, but isn't Fox one of the biggest media companies out there? Aren't they mainstream media? And it goes nowhere. So I'm there. But I'm just not I don't know that we have the luxury of just the writing off of people in that way. And
No.
maybe he's not suggesting that.
Maybe he is. I don't know. I just think that, again, I thought just the title of the article is provocative for just how we keep trying to tit for tat everything.
Yeah.
And or we just try to posture as like, which is what got us into this mess largely in the first place, a really condescending posture.
Yep.
Like, oh, look at these plebeians that just can't
right,
think their way out of a box. And it's like, this kind of rhetoric is what helped create a lot of this problem. But I do think, like we were talking about in the classroom, two things. One, we were talking about some of this kind of stuff, and I was just, I talked to them about the turn the other cheek thing, and so I'm really trying to think about how Jesus, all the different ways in which Jesus interacted with human beings, because I find every one of them really fascinating. But like the turn the other cheek thing with just the idea of participating in that denigration non-violently, but you are still confronting it. You know what I mean? Like there's a really interesting amount of discernment, and like you have to posture yourself very carefully to do that in that way, to respond to violence non-violently, but to still respond to it in a way that begs participation from the other party. And then, or just the way he would answer questions with questions that invite people into finding answers or participating in uncovering the answer to the question. And just, as we're going forward in the Lord's Prayer too, it's very invitational to like participation with into like the fulfillment of humanity. And it's just like nothing was just done so that we could write down quotes and then put them in a book with the president someday. Like it was all done in a way that is inviting you. It's like he models it, but while he's a very good teacher. While he models it, he's like not manipulating, but he's provoking people to be involved in what they're doing. It's the best kind of teaching because people inhabit the teaching and then they learn it through their own actions and stuff. So not only he's doing two things at once all the time, which is just very wise and very invitational, and then also covers a multitude of different learning styles. That, and then we read this article in class that was written by this woman that's an immigration lawyer or immigration, I can't remember what her job title is, but the title of the article is something like "Tell me how the story ends," and she's talking to her little daughter at the end of the workday, and she wants to know about some of the immigration interviews that she went through, and so the title is a double entendre because it talks about the daughter not having a fulfilling answer to the story that her mom's telling her, but also what the story represents nationally. And the story is that there's these two little girls coming up from somewhere in South America. Their mom has already been in the United States for a while, working, saving up. Then she sends money down to help the girls come up. They're very, very little. The grandma tries to help them memorize their mom's phone number, but they can't. So she sews it into the back of their dresses and says, don't ever take these dresses off no matter what. And once you get to America, you find somebody in a uniform and you have them call that number. And so they travel all this way. They're like little, like Mazzie's age and younger, little girls traveling all the way up this dangerous territory with coyotes, like the people that bring people up over the border. They get here, and then so the whole thing is taking place in the office where they're getting interviewed. And the little girls, one of them doesn't speak any English at all, and the other one speaks a little bit. And she's asking these questions because she cannot grant them asylum. This article's a little bit old. She cannot grant them asylum unless they're under threat. And so she's talking about how she's asking these questions because she needs them to be abused and threatened. But as a mother and a human being, she does not want them to be abused and threatened. So she's sitting in the tension of this thing, like, I don't know how this story ends because I don't know what to do. I can't help them unless they're being abused, but I don't want them to be abused. And it's like, that's the reality of this situation. Like, it's not just black, white, easy, yes, no, whatever. It's like all gray, requires a ton of discernment and like the willingness to sit and to dig into people's stories and try to help them out. So all that to say, like, all this kind of stuff, I think we keep looking for someone to give us a really pat, simple response and answer to how to get out of this mess. And I think that article is trying to circumvent that, but not give us anything. Just like, yeah, you need to blah, blah, blah. But I think we have to find new ways of just embodying, like I said with Jesus, like how do you resist? How do you partner into a resistance of violence that's nonviolent in that way, but you're still involved in the resistance of it? And what that begs of you in your own human dignity, what that asks of the person who is inflicting the violence and their human dignity. So there's so much baked in there in that tension of that whole back and forth. So that's the thing I'm most interested in, is like, how do we in 2025 take the teachings of this person from a couple thousand years ago in a smaller demographic, without social media, without all these different things, but there is an appropriateness to how he postured in humanity and how he invited people to be renewed and dignified in their own humanity, no matter who they were. So there's something really just every episode, there's something profound in that that I'm still trying to dig at and figure out, how do we do that? How do we emulate that?
And we lose sight of how costly that was. In other words, hey, easy for me and you to say love your enemies. We're sitting here chatty, warm, fed, whatever. When Jesus was saying that they were an occupied country, they were terrorized, right? I mean,
and there's that discernment, like, how do you reposture when you are the power?
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, that's the big one. That's the big one. Okay. Can we hit Lord's Prayer?
Please.
Do you have anything else? Oh, well, we've just got, we've got some stuff we got to cover. We're we're moving at our, incredibly slow pace. So Father is a relational word. It is a vocational word. And it is also a status word. And this gets into the question of whether or not God is male. John Piper famously said, and we all threw up inside our mouths when he said it, Christianity has a distinctively masculine feel.
Whatever that means.
And so, well, I think we do know what it means. I think we know exactly what he means when he says that. That men image God more accurately, I think, than women do, even though they wouldn't say that probably, but I think that's exactly what it is. That. So let's start with some basics, facts on the ground. Number one, both male and female imagery is used of God. So even in the New Testament, right? To be born again, that's a feminine image. The bride of Christ feminine image, at least for the church. Jesus compares himself to a mother hen, and Paul uses the image of like a nursing mother. And so this isn't necessarily, I mean, these are just feminine images that are used in Christian life, not only for God, but it's used to describe either the life of faith or the posture of a Christian leader or what God is like. So you've got masculine and feminine imagery, but masculine imagery dominates. I mean, dominates, not even close. God is male in the Old Testament insofar as paternal titles are used rather than maternal ones, although there are some exceptions. Hosea, Deuteronomy, Isaiah, and a couple of places in the Psalms. But the interesting part is that God, even though male titles are used, God is not male sexually. And that's a really significant point. The male deities of the ancient Near East impregnated, raped, violated. This paternal deity doesn't do that. And that's something that will be significant in just a second. And so because familial language is used to describe the interrelationship of God and what God is like, I don't know that there is language anywhere that can avoid the potential for abuse. And so that takes me into a woman by the name of Amy Peeler wrote a book called Women and the Gender of God. And this is a really thick, really technical book. I'm just going to summarize the basic arguments she makes.
We have an interview with her somewhere back.
Do we?
I think so.
Nice.
I think maybe for this book, maybe 100 episodes or so ago.
Yeah, dude, they all blend together. Anyway, if we do, that's awesome. I don't remember interviewing her, but I hope we did because it's a really great book. She starts out by just pointing out how nobody in their theology affirms that God is male. Nobody would ever say that. But there is a lot of analogical reasoning that is used to describe the similarities between God and men. So God creates, men create. God initiates, men initiate. Right? The big, hey, God is like the husband or the bridegroom, and the church is like the bride. And so whatever Christ does, husbands are to do, and you get into the Ephesians 5 sort of analogies. And what you can draw from those is that if God is like the husband and the church, frail humanity, is like the wife, then the husband is superior to the wife, not equal, because obviously God is superior to humanity. And so there are, and even that Jesus came as a male is suggestive in certain lines of argumentation. And so she starts by just acknowledging that even though God is imaged in men and women, images are used, male and female images are used of God.
Fail and female.
Yes, there is an underlying masculinity that is attached to God that plays itself out in the gender of Christ and in the ways men can uniquely, in this line of argument, uniquely image God. Mm-hmm. And so her counter is God the Father is not male, and God the Son is a male like no other. And so that you cannot draw conclusions about masculinity or femininity. So God the Father, so father there doesn't function as a gender, it functions as a title or status word. And that's what I'm going to explore after we go through her book. So God the Father is not male, and God the Son is a male like no other. And her argument rests on the manner and mode of the incarnation. Mary's body is deemed worthy of the most holy presence of God, not sexually. That God the Father was not literally a father, but God the Father overshadowed Mary in a way that prevented you from drawing conclusions that God the Father was masculine. Does that make sense? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of her main arguments. And she goes on, God does not look like men or privilege men. And this is where, man, again, we all agree that God doesn't have a gender, but privileging men, that's really where we run into some of our Reformed brothers and sisters, and we would disagree dramatically with their take on this. Men are not privileged as leaders and initiators in the way that these folks claim. God is being, God is spirit, and God is imaged in both male and female. She makes a big argument that Jesus's maleness does not image God the Father's maleness, because God the Father is not male. Yahweh becomes a father not by approaching a woman, but rather by electing a son. And so this is one of the core parts of her book, that the Incarnation denies God's maleness. God is not like the other gods who have sex with women. God does not act like a male in the Incarnation story. God the Father partners with the Holy Spirit to overshadow Mary. And so we can speak of God the Father without affirming that God is male, and we can speak of Jesus being masculine in a way that no one else ever could possibly be. Mm-hmm. But even still, the assumption that God is more like men than women still thrives, and that men are more like God than women, that's still out there, despite her great technical argument. She deals with the question of, should we still call God a father? And she actually argues, yes, we should. And the reason we should is because Jesus did. Jesus, we don't get to call God the Father on our own merits. We get to call God our Father because we stand united with Jesus in his unique sonship of the Father, towards the Father. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So she argues we should still, even though father language is problematic because we equate it with either earthly fathers or masculinity, she suggests that we should still call God Father, even though that, reflects patriarchy, the patriarchal cultures this was written in. But more importantly, if the Father is not male, and rather son and father are the words used to describe Jesus and the Jesus and God dynamic, of all the images they could use to describe that, they choose father and son. The only way to understand God as Father is by understanding Jesus the Son. And the only way to understand Jesus the Son is to understand that God is the Father. Not of everybody, but of this Trinitarian covenantal relationship. This is the image that's used. And so she recommends still using that image because it captures the fact that they're both persons, the fact that they're interdependent on each other, and the fact that there is love towards one another. And mutual submission. So she actually suggests we ought to keep using the term because father and son capture a core dynamic that maybe like creator, redeemer, and sustainer doesn't capture. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So we should address God as Father not because he's male and not because God is more masculine than feminine, but because God the Father is an expression of the triune will set forth from his Son born of a woman. In other words, the incarnation of Jesus sets the terms for what Father and Son turn out to be. And in the incarnation, God is not male. He does not take the masculine role. He's just God. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So father is a status word, not a gender word. Now, let me give you an analogy for how this works. All right, now I'm away from Amy Peeler. Paul writes in Ephesians 1, he uses an example of adoption that we're going to talk about more next episode or the episode after that. In Ephesians 1, he writes, and God chose us in him before the creation of the world to be holy and blameless in his sight. In love, he predestined us for adoption to sonship through Jesus Christ. So, Paul's writing to a church made of men and women, children, adult, slave-free. And he says God has adopted us. He's predestined us for adoption to sonship. All right, now, adoption to sonship, that is one Greek word, and it means son placing. And because there's no Old Testament law concerning this, there's no ancient Near Eastern code that this is referring to, it has to refer to the Roman practice of son placing because it's a Greek word that's used. The Roman practice of son placing is really, really interesting. And we'll talk more about it as we proceed down what father means and looks like. But it's things like when you get adopted into a new family, your debts are dismissed with. Your old identity is erased, and you receive a new identity and a new status attendant to that new identity. And so Paul looks at this and says, man, this is a beautiful picture of what Jesus does, that we in Jesus receive by grace what he is by nature. Namely, he is the heir of the kingdom. He is the son. And so son placing is this beautiful picture of gospel work that doesn't have an Old Testament antecedent, and really we don't know much about it from the ancient world. Roman son placing, though, we know a heck of a lot about. And so adoption for sonship, when the way Paul uses this is not a picture for men only. The cultural picture was the adoption of adult sons. Paul uses that picture of adopting adult sons to the place of co-heir. Okay? Are you with me?
Yep.
You promise?
Yep.
Okay, because your face is talking.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, do it.
No, I don't want to interrupt. Go.
All right, well, let me make this one point.
Yep.
So when Paul looks at the church and says adoption to sonship, he doesn't mean you've turned male or you've turned masculine. What's he mean? In Christ, you have taken the place of status that Christ himself has as the heir to the kingdom, right? So Paul in Galatians talk about we're co-heirs with Christ, right? We get to call the Father Abba Father. But adoption to sonship isn't a gender word, it's a status word. That's my point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Adoption to sonship is the assumption of Christians, male or female, of a new status. And that the determining factor of our status and identity now is the son of now being sons of the Father, even though we're male and female.
Yeah.
We hold the positional status of sonship, even though right, we don't all share the same gender. So sonship here is not a gender word, it's a status word. My argument is that's how father is also used.
Yeah.
That father is a status word that carried certain gravitas and authority and weight in the ancient world that served as an imperfect analogy to what God is like. So it's a relational word. God the Father pursues us, right? The prodigal son parable like pictures what Jesus means by the Father. Also, when we assume the sonship, we are volunteering for the vocation of manifesting and bearing witness to the Father's glory and reality and goodness. And it also is a designation of status now that we share in the status of Jesus. All right, question.
Okay, I got to think about how to word this.
Ooh.
All that makes perfect sense. We've spent a lot of time on, we did a whole Timothy study on women and the status of women. We've done there's tons of episodes on this topic, but how do I word this? How much of this, so you mentioned these are patriarchal societies. So when you think about post Genesis 3, the suboptimal kind of modus operandi that we find ourselves in, God's accommodation to things that are suboptimal, right? I don't remember how you worded it. This is not God's
that's it.
ideal, but which is opens that whole conversation about whether or not God is in control, what control actually means, and then also, that accommodation is not like an approval or an ordination of something, but it is I'm still going to work through this, right? And so there's that whole conversation about good coming from evil, whether or not God causes evil. We just kind of did that a couple episodes ago. So the question then becomes, how much of this language is suboptimal accommodation? Like as humans left and went out into the world and began to build the world in their own image, and men maybe were physically stronger or whatever, and took dominance over and made women largely commodities up until, I mean, some people would still consider it that way, but until recent history. And not just women, but obviously whatever person of color is not in the driver's seat. So human history has a dominance problem, and largely from the male persuasion.
Genesis 3. Straight.
So as all this stuff kind of unveils itself and this language unveils it, how much do you think is accommodation to the fact that this is how humans have structured society? And like when we have conversations about being parts of organizations, I'm trying to say this as broadly as possible. Organizations that we don't necessarily agree with what they're doing, but we stay within those organizations so that we can affect change from inside of said organization. That's me working suboptimally and accommodating a place so that I can still be in there and love people and try to do something good. Right. I don't want to be a part of that organization. I don't want to support that organization. I don't want to do anything like that, but there's something to being in there and suboptimally, and to love and to try to cause change or whatever. Right. So how much of this system is that, like, just, we only understand the language as father and male headship because patriarchy has run for most of human existence. So does that make sense? Like, and Jesus obviously subverts this in really interesting ways continually, and so did God. And like some of the language that you brought up, like there's ways in which they get in there, and we've talked about even like in Genesis, like the word for helper, that how God identifies within the situation as a female term. Like there's all this stuff where God and Jesus subvert this stuff, but the language, I was even, when you're talking, I was thinking about the images of God, right? Because somebody was just talking the other day, a friend who like has left the faith completely. And they're talking about the big, angry, white bearded male God. And I'm just like, how much of that's just from like Greek and Roman mythology? Like they had these images of Zeus and
totally
big beard and all this stuff. So we're like, well, we've got a big white dude up in the clouds too with the white beard and all this stuff. Like, but then now we've built entire theologies around this image of God the Father, the same way we have with the white Jesus. So I'm trying to sit here and I'm trying really hard to listen to what for like our sisters who are listening to this, and they've just constantly been in the position of being lorded over, and they see all those images online of like God is the big umbrella, then the man is the umbrella under that, and then the woman, and then the children or whatever, and that there's this hierarchy to everything, and women are always underneath. They're never. Does that make sense? So it's like, is a lot of this accommodation language that people just can't hear unless it's delivered, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down kind of thing. I don't know. Like it's comfortable because we've only seen men largely ruling over with power over. So I wonder how much of that is accommodation language that's still trying to teach.
I mean, all of it has to be, right? I mean,
probably
when you're so it's like using Caesar words to describe Jesus.
Yes, exactly. That's a great example.
It's that same thing. So it's like you're rummaging around culture. I mean, it's what Shane did, right? When you said, "Hey, Jesus for president."
Yeah.
Like,
or Paul with
Jesus
I just lost it. With poets and different things from
So you're rummaging around culture, and you're saying, or the Old Testament, and you're saying, Hey, Jesus showed up, and none of us were ready for who he was, because he turned out he was Messiah, but in the exact like opposite way Messiah was to happen. I mean, we can't appreciate how mind-blowing Jesus is. And so they began to do, it seems, several things. One is they adapted. They didn't see Jesus outside of the Jewish faith. Right. Jesus was Jewish. And so part of Jewishness is understanding that Israel was considered the firstborn son of God. And yes, that's patriarchy for sure. But it also captures a dynamic that God wanted to capture, because God also uses the husband-father analogy or the parent-child analogy with Israel too. So it's multi-layered. And so Jesus comes first as Jewish. Secondly, what Jesus does is that Jesus refers to the Father in ways that aren't unique. We see them throughout Jewish history, but there was something about Jesus's use of Father that captured the disciples, because it became so important that they kept repeating, we can call God Abba Father too. That in virtue of faith in Jesus, not Jewish identity, we now stand in the place of exalted sons. And so that makes sense that is an analogy that they would say, yes, particularly when you understand the role of father over an ancient family. It makes sense. When they get to the Roman periods, and they're announcing Jesus, Messiah doesn't translate to Greeks. And so Lord, Kyrios, that translates. Savior, that translates, right? And could those things possibly be misunderstood? Well, of course. I think that's why they chose them, is so that you could not accept Caesar as Savior and Jesus as Savior at the same time in the same way.
Yeah.
So I think deliberately. So of course this is suboptimal language, because Jesus is not the new Caesar. He's an entirely different kind of Caesar. Jesus isn't like your father. He's an entirely different kind of father. But all of those modes of communicating are necessarily and implicitly limited by their usage.
Yeah.
Right? You just cannot, there's no analogy that can speak fully. And I also want to say that Paul looks at Torah. So he celebrates Torah, but then calls it a Torah of death when it's captured by the powers and principalities.
Yeah.
So like the word father, captured by powers and principalities, so that it just feeds the domination system.
Yep.
The question is, well, should we just call God mother then? Does that bias anything, you know? And Peeler deals with the arguments for and against that, but she ultimately settles with, no, I think father language captures something that Jesus wants to redeem, namely the kind of familial relationship that God has with his people, that God is creating a new family, a new household, and that is captured in the father-son dynamic in ways maybe mother won't. Although mother is used when we talk about being born again or
right.
born from above, mother is certainly used there. So yes, it is all and it has to be, right? It is an accommodation. But I also think there are strategic ways that God is redeeming language.
Sure.
And that's where I think the Caesar language is a great parallel, where Caesar saves one way, but Christ saves another. God is a father in one way, but we know fatherhood in a different way. And I think what Peeler's trying to do, and I think she does, I mean, again, these are modes. I've not read how sophisticated some of the language about the Incarnation has been used to justify God, having a masculine feel. And so the arguments are really, really in depth. But her point is, we can still hold father and lose male.
Yeah.
Your point is, that requires more work.
Well, I think okay, sure. I think it requires more work. But I don't say that's a negative. I think it's definitely a positive. Like it's again, another thing that's like I was saying about Jesus earlier, like it's an invitational, you're being invited into the conversation, but you have a little bit of work to do in the conversation. Like
Yeah.
It is a three-dimensional. What you just said
me,
is a three-dimensional thing, not a two-dimensional thing. But we made it two-dimensional. Like God's a father, God's in charge. I'm a male, I'm in charge.
Yes, exactly. That is what Peeler is warning against. Let me add one more element to this, and then we'll wrap it. The reason I think one of the reasons the father language was used was because it was a status and identity word that was the most important status and identity image in the ancient world.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, in the ancient world, group status determined your individual status. No one had individual status apart from a group. And the most determinative group status you had was your father. It was through your father that everything was reckoned. So we meet people all the time. So-and-so, son of masculine name. Yep. So-and-so, son of masculine name, right? The sons of Zebedee. So, like, it wasn't just a vocation that came through the father, but your identity as a human person came through the father. And so what an incredible image to recapture by saying, like in the book of John, anyone that comes to faith in Jesus, now is born as a child of God, now becomes a child of God. It's like, there's no way you could better capture ancient ears than by having you adopted by a father whose bloodline now defines you in ways that nothing else could. So Jesus is setting up a contrast when he says, hate your mother and father. I've come to divide. All of that, he's ripping us out of the kinship groups that were so determinative. And he's placing us in a new kinship group defined by his father. We're going to talk more about this, I think, next episode. But I just want to see that one of the reasons to retain father is in the ancient world, who your father was determined your status and your identity. And there is no better picture of a new identity than having a new father. Mm-hmm. So to be born again, to be son placed into a family, to now hold the position of sonship, even if you're a woman, like all of that is the ancient world shouting that you now share a status that is the most determinative thing about your status. There's nothing more important than the bloodline of your father. Nothing more important. Even brothers and sisters were always closer than married couples. Because brother and sister shared the bloodline of a father, whereas a husband and wife did not share the bloodline of the father. And so in the ancient world, it was very common that you would choose your sister over your wife if ever they came into conflict. King Herod is a great example of this when he murdered one of his wives at the behest of one of his sisters. Jeez. And so if you want to read more on this, Joseph Hellerman, The Church as a Family, is just filled with this stuff. But one of the things that father does that I think is so important to recognize is in the ancient world, there's no other way to be identified. There's no more important way to be identified. That's why when the people in Jesus's hometown call him Mary's son, that's a slander. It's like, we don't know who your father is. Yeah. Or in John 8, when they say, well, we're not illegitimate children. I mean, that's a total dig on Jesus, the circumstances of Jesus's birth. So all that is to say, yes, it is suboptimal language. And yes, I still use it because it captures certain things that have to be redeemed in culture. Absolutely. God is a father, but not male. What a great way to say that. Jesus is male, but unlike any other male. And certainly not male like his father is male. She does a great work at sort of recapturing this, but the part I didn't see in the book was how father-son is a status. That's a status thing. And if Jesus is ultimately, like you said earlier, forming a renewed Israel, a renewed people of God, then having God as their father makes total sense in terms of that's the most important part of my identity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's just very cultural.
I don't know that answers everything.
No, it does. I think that's it. It's just a three-dimensional. It's just much more.
Yes.
It's just so much thicker than just like God's a man. He's the father. Father's a head
I'm a man.
house. yada, yada, yada.
Totally.
Instead, it's like there's a whole lot baked in here that is dealing with culture and our understanding how we've built systems, and this is God coming into those systems to redeem those systems, or however you want to phrase that. But there is a subversion to, and we just have missed that, or maybe not missed it as much as, I mean, some of the stuff makes me think of like the slave Bible, where it's like we knew what we were doing. We edited those pieces out on purpose because it kept the people in power that needed to be in power. And so there's so much of that through our theological history of just like, well, they don't need to know that part. I mean, the most important part is that they invite them into their hearts, but Anyway, I just like, I want to pick all this stuff apart because it's
shocker,
unnecessary baggage.
It is. Yes. And I think there is no unbaggaged language that can be used here.
No, but the way we posture ourselves within that, I think, is really important.
Yes.
So what you just said, what Peeler said, like that stuff is very important to say, hey, here's some reasons why this language is this way. Here's some reasons why this language matters. Yeah. And where do we find ourselves within this kind of, terminology?
Yep, exactly. Yes. And what parts of it are still worth, what parts do Father, Son still capture that are good? Obviously, we know a lot of the parts that we should dispense with, but what does that capture?
Yeah.
And the recognition that mother-child also captures some, that Father, Son doesn't, and that Paul and Jesus both make use of it. So I know. I wish suboptimal conditions were not what was being dealt with, but we wouldn't be here otherwise. So, dang. Okay. Mike and Tim, both male humans, wish you all a very merry holiday. We have one more episode before Christmas, and so we're going to interview the baby Jesus, and it's going to be great. So until next time, hold on, I need to do one more statement.
I'm sure they probably had one of these with Caesar and Jesus.
Let's see here. Let me find a good one. Together we will win. Campaign rally in Colorado Springs, 2020. Parallel statement. Where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am with them. And on that note, we're out.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. The Voxology Podcast is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is made possible by listeners just like you. If you'd like to partner with us, you can do so at patreon.com/Voxology Podcast or on Tithely, tithe.ly, and just search Voxology Podcast. Links for both are in the show notes and on our website. You can interact with the hosts on Facebook /Voxology Podcast or on Instagram at Voxology Podcast and on Twitter or X, whatever it is, at Mike Erie. Thank you for walking this long road with us.